So what's up people, and welcome to the chapter 60 discussion of Kaiju number 8 or Kaiju 8号. So chapter 60 came out about 10 days ago, and as always I will leave a link to this chapter that's currently being shown on the publisher's official website, Manga Plus, for free to the North American audience. So if you're interested, yeah, go take a look at it before they pull this chapter back. Okay, so chapter 60. Yeah, this was a relatively straightforward and simple chapter. I'm not sure if it needed to be this long. If you recall in chapter 59, Leno's leader, the leader of Division 4, Ogata, told Leno that he will watch him train for 1 month and then determine whether he will give the okay to let Leno fuse with monster number 6's powers. And this is because what we find out is that although these battle suits with the monster powers give incredible power, they also are incredibly taxing to the person wearing it. And if you're not careful, you could literally die being overtaxed by those powers. And we saw that Leno blacked out in chapter 59 just by wearing that battle suit. And so Ogata was being extremely cautious in giving Leno the ability to use the suit. And so chapter 60 turns out to be, of course, the continuation of that. It's a relatively simple chapter in that we find out relatively simply he can use the powers. Yeah, he's successfully able to use the suit. But I guess the one interesting thing about this chapter was that it wasn't written through the eyes of Leno or Ogata, but instead the chapter was written through the eyes of Iharu. Yes, Iharu. Many of you may have forgotten who he was. I sure did for a little while. He is one of those side characters who came out of the many different characters who joined Division 3 at the same time as Leno, Shinomiya, and Kafka. He's one of those students who was supposed to be quite promising, but what we find out in chapter 60 is he's starting to have serious doubts because he's falling behind Leno. Now, Leno turns out to be a genius, and although he started behind Iharu, he has completely overtaken him and has become one of the strongest members of Division 4. And so, of course, while Iharu is watching this, he's feeling very frustrated, and he promises himself that he will not fall behind Leno. And so now the second part of the chapter falls 1 month later, and you already see Leno utilizing the battle suit, and they go into a combat mission with some lower level monsters. And Iharu is with him, and they go into battle, and Iharu immediately finds out that Leno has seriously powered up with the battle suit. But what he also finds is that Leno isn't completely in control of the suit. And somewhere along the way, the suit gives him some problems, and that puts him in danger of the monsters. And so Iharu starts immediately coming in to help Leno out and to show his powers. And he's feeling quite optimistic that he is able to stay up and protect Leno. But eventually, Leno does get control of the battle suit. And once he does, yeah, Iharu immediately sees the power and the wrath that he can bring out when Leno one-shots one of the monsters with his powers. Now, this chapter also tells us that monster number 6's powers was freezing powers. So not only can Leno use it to freeze the monsters, but he could also use it on his own body to freeze himself in a position that will give him the advantage for attacking. And we see this control being done at the latter part of the chapters, and by the time Leno has full control of the battlesuit, Iharu realizes that he has some serious work he needs to do to be able to catch up to Leno. So it was an interesting chapter in that we got a little bit more introduction to yet another side character. And this would be quite interesting if, of course, Matsumoto Naoya delved into Iharu and showed how he was going to work hard to try to catch up to Leno. The only thing is that I got a feeling after this chapter, Iharu's kind of gonna get brushed aside again, and it's going to focus on Leno. And the reason I feel this way is Matsumoto Naoya is already trying to juggle 4 different characters' development at this time. Leno, Shinomiya, Kafka, and Vice Commander Hoshina. And this is going to be a task in itself to try to keep all of that organized. If you start putting in these smaller side characters such as Iharu, then I think it's going to take the story and disengage it from a lot of the important focus that it needs to stay on. And so why did Matsumoto Naoya bring Iharu in if he's going to brush him to the side? Well, maybe he won't, and that's one of the reasons why he's introducing him. But if he does brush him aside, the only thing I could think of is, well, it was a relatively straightforward and simple chapter. In chapter 59, Ogata said, do you think you can really use the battlesuit? And all chapter 60 was, Leno was able to use the battlesuit. If that's all it was, it would have been a relatively simple chapter. And by putting this viewpoint in, it conveniently added a little bit of complexity. However, once again, I don't know how I feel about this chapter because I'm not sure if that complexity was necessary. And maybe he could have shown a little bit more focus towards the difficulties that Leno had in evolving into being able to use that battlesuit. That part was relatively simple. But it wasn't particularly a bad chapter, and to be honest, I really want to focus back to some of the other characters like Shinomiya, Kafka, and Hoshina as well. So if he brushes aside Iharu, I'm not going to feel particularly bad about that. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But in any case, this is the chapter 60 discussion of Kaiju number 8. Yeah, what'd you think about this story or this particular chapter? And if you could leave your comments, I would appreciate it. And once the next chapter comes out, I'll bring up another video and I hope you join me at that time. But in any case, until then, happy manga reading. And as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.